This podcast is brought to you by Most Valuable Podcasts, saving your day from boredom with the best podcasting entertainment.
What's up, Real MVPs, Ricky Widmer here, along with fellow Manchild, Johnny Karlic. And we are back for another edition of the Rick and Johnny podcast, right here on Most Valuable Podcast, your one-stop shop for everything under the two nerdy suns. Talking video games, we talk superheroes, Marvel, DC, we talk comics, we talk movies. Like I said, everything under those suns we talk about. If you want to join in on the conversation, go to patreon.com/Most Valuable Podcast. You can do so in three ways. $1 tier, you get to join our Discord, talk to us whenever you want, 24/7. Us and the Patreon community, you get to talk to us 24/7. All it is $1 per month. $5, you get to ask your own questions to the podcast. We answer them here on the podcast each and every week. And then for a single 10, who's on the $10 barrel? On the $10 bear.
$10 bear?
$10 bear. Who's on the $10 bill? Is that a Jackson?
I think it is.
Is it an Andrew Jackson? Is that what I'm thinking? Do you have a $10 bill in your pocket?
I do.
I like how we pull out the money instead of just Googling it. Because that would have been a great idea.
It's Jackson.
It's an Andrew Jackson. For one Andrew Jackson, you could join the podcast talking to exactly what you would like to talk about with Johnny and I, or any podcast on MVP, either on MVP Nerd or Most Valuable Podcast General Channel. Go ahead, that link down below in the description. Every money we use helps us make this the full-time job, full-time studio. It helps us do what we love to do for you guys each and every week. I don't know why I'm talking with my hands like this. If you're on YouTube, if you're an audio listener, feel thankful that I'm not like just throwing my hand at you in a weird grabby motion. But let's get into the actual podcast, Johnny. We're talking some Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. We're talking about some Avengers 5 with some MCU news. And then we've got video games. The rest of the podcast is going to be taking a look at BlizzCon Part 1 of a discussion that will be continued by Dave and I on twitch.tv/Most Valuable Podcast. It'll probably be up there before you go. It'll probably be up here on YouTube before you go. And check that out. And then we're also going to take a look at the Marvel's Avengers video game. There's some stuff coming out I wanted to talk about because it's making me nervous. But let's start with Into the Spider-Verse news. A teaser trailer dropped for Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse 2. It was a little short, I want to say like 20-second clip of just, hey, here it is, 2022. They flashed some Spider-Man logos. We'll see you April 8th, 2022. My first thought, we're going to talk about storylines. We're going to talk about plot theories that we can get. My first thing for you, Johnny, is before we get into anything, just coming into Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse 2, because we thought they'd make another one. We weren't completely sure. This kind of is like, yes, they have been making it. It's coming out. What do you want to see in an Into the Spider-Verse 2 that maybe we didn't see in the first one?
I guess it would be nice to just get some other Spider-Man, maybe one, at least one that we're all more familiar with, whether it be from the 90s or if they can get Tom Holland or like they've been saying, maybe one of the other two previous ones. Just one we're more familiar with.
So just character, because like you looked at
it was cool to see all the ones we've never seen before or have barely seen before.
The one that we've probably seen the most of is Jake Johnson's Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Only because he's supposed to be a combination of Garfield and Maguire. Yeah. They did show like stuff from those movies.
I've seen like one instance of Spider-Ham before this came out. And I think one instance of Spider-Man Noir.
Yeah, probably for me, Miles would have been the other one. I mean, the Spider-Man video game had him in there. I obviously know who Miles is, but I've never really dealt with the character. Spider-Gwen is just one where I see it cons because, you know, that like girls are like, hey, I don't want to be Spider-Woman, I want to be Spider-Gwen.
Exactly.
So you see the Spider-Gwen costumes
a lot
are aplenty at the cons. I usually see them more. I don't think I see many Jessica Drew or Spider-Woman.
No,
costumes.
Not a lot.
It's mainly Spider-Gwen.
Spider-Gwen, and I
think it's the hood. I think people just like hoods.
They're probably like the palette because it's different. It's not all red. It's like the black and white.
Pink. Yeah, it's got that
black, white, pink.
I think it's got like some neon blue.
Yeah, I would say it's like an aqua color. Turquoise.
An aqua turquoise.
Turquoise.
Turquoise. Turquoise. Say it again.
Turquoise.
Turquoise.
Turquoise. Turquoise.
A turquoise.
Ricky, you just made up the next Pokemon.
I am either that or I'm watching the Herculoids over here, going back to the 90s and 80s. But we do have, from the trailer, some idea of who might be added into this. And we're going to play a rapid-fire game that everyone loves of will it happen, won't it happen? And basically, I'm just going to throw these ones out. You know they're coming. They're on the spreadsheet. And they were in the trailer. So the logos that they flashed were, one of them was the Japanese Spider-Man from the 70s, which I know you love to show me footage of. Because the live-action Japanese Spider-Man.
That's not what I've shown you footage of.
I thought that's what you showed me.
No, there's a
of.
joke one that I've found online, Italian Spider-Man.
That's what
I send you.
Okay, here's the thing that I'm stupid.
I've never sent you the Japanese Spider-Man. I totally
thought the Japanese Spider-Man was what you were sending me. The freaking joke Spider-Man. Because I saw it and I was like, they're going to put that guy Into the Spider-Verse?
No, that's not what I've sent you.
All right, then they're not putting that. Like, my thought
that would be
head,
funny.
That's what I was thinking.
That would be hilarious.
We're going to put that Spider-Man
even if it's only like
Spider-Verse.
reference, that'd be hilarious.
So they're putting the Japanese Spider-Man that Ricky totally thought was
I don't know why he thought I've ever
else.
sent him that.
Then we got the 90s animated TV Spider-Man.
And that's the one I want to see, honestly. Because I can...
Let's start there. Will they, won't they, and Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse 2. I'm just going to call it Spider-Verse 2. Will they, won't they, 90s Peter
How the hell am I
Parker.
supposed to know?
Prediction, man.
I hope they do.
I mean, this is one where...
This is one that a lot of us, especially... If
everyone getting into their 30s or in their 30s.
Yeah, getting into their 30s, having the kids that they're going to drag over to see this movie.
Mm-hmm. Like, yeah,
they're gonna.
That was my Spider-Man. That's
exactly. That's the ones they're going to get. Like, hey, yeah, that's, like you said, that's my Spider-Man. That's the one I knew about. This is the one that I can relate to now.
I also just want to see that Spider-Man costume in this, like, animated style of the movie. Because... to me, it's kind of like that. The styles from the 90s to this one aren't vastly different, but they are. Like
he's got a different logo on the back of his.
No, I'm saying I feel like that our version of Spider-Man would look very nice in the animation style that they've been using for Into the Spider-Verse 2.
What I want to see is like when he gets dropped in the guitar riff from.
No, I'm thinking X-Men.
No, but there was
why can't I get it in my head? You played the there it is. Okay, I got it. Go.
You remember? Yeah, you know that like just I don't want the rest of it.
You just want the
like you know how it did that guitar slide
at the beginning.
Down, that like bar chord slide downward right before the theme started
of the song. Yeah.
I want just that riff as he's dropping through the portal.
Every single time or just the first time we see him?
I would be fine with just the first time.
Johnny's like,
just to introduce him.
Need.
Like, he drops in, like, what the fuck's going on?
Mm-hmm. How about, do you think they added a Jessica Drew? Because here's the
That'd be another one I would want to see.
Because here's the thing with Jessica Drew is in the comics, I didn't know this going into Spider-Verse 1. I do now because obviously I looked into it.
Yeah.
To see if there were comics about a Spider-Verse, which there are. Duh, Ricky, if they do a movie on it, obviously there's comics on this. But in the comic book story, I guess Jessica Drew puts together like an Avengers-like team of Spider-Man to kind of jump through the multiverses or the Spider-Verses to combat the troubles that are going on through them. Do you think we see that? Because we're obviously going to see, what was that? Spider-Man... the one we saw at the very, very end of the movie. Miguel.
Spider-Man 2099?
2099. That's the number. We know he's going to be in it because he's got the goober, the gizmo, whatever you want to call it,
the gadget
on his wrist. And that's going to be the one to basically let him jump between the multiverses or the Spider-Verses. Do you think it's something like if we get Jessica Drew in this, it's the same thing where in her Spider-Verse, they already came up with one of these goobers, and it's her and her team. And maybe that's how these other Spider-Men get added. It's not like the first time where it's like, hey, we're all coming together. Could we see a story where, because I don't think they're going to get to the Thanos-like villain, which I'll get to in a second.
Yeah.
But whatever villain it is, Kingpin for the first one, new one for this one, do you think it's all the new Spider-Man instead of them getting dropped in? It's Jessica Drew and her, I almost said Jessica Jones, Jessica Drew and her team is made up of these different new Spider-Men that we've never seen before.
I think it's going to be more of an kind of focal of, what was it, Miguel, right? From 2099. Mm-hmm. Him be the focal point of the one that can jump from one to the other. Then Jessica Drew will be introduced in this one, but she won't have the team yet.
Okay.
This will be because we don't have Jessica Drew in this Into the Spider-Verse yet.
But she could be, like, we don't know what's going on behind the scenes.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, she'll get the tack from Miguel at some point. Mm-hmm. Maybe he'll share his goober and how to make it work.
Yeah.
And then she can, like, because she'll like, hey, I want to make a team.
Like, hey, maybe
to combat this bigger threat.
Like, hey, maybe it's better to have more of us with this so we can all jump.
Yeah.
Between these multiverses and not just one.
I feel like he's going to be reluctant or not reluctant. I made that he's not going to want to share the technology at first. And by the end, they're going to see like, it's going to be like an after credit scene where it's a bigger, she's like, there's a bigger picture. We need to have a few of us with this so we can jump and take on these bigger baddies.
Yeah. Which, you know what, thinking about it, that kind of makes more sense. Because a lot of the stuff that I do, I notice this. A lot of the stuff that I do when we come up with movies and stuff is I relegate things to behind the scenes a lot. Where it's like, oh, we don't need to see the formation of that team. I just want to see the team. It's like, but wouldn't the cool thing be to see Jessica Jones kind of go through the trouble and kind of form this team that we see? Another one, this is one that I'm not super familiar with, but like I know who they are, is Ben Reilly. All I know about Ben Reilly is that he's two things. A, Scarlet Spider. B, he's the Spider-Man that his costume is more of, you got the red, but he's got like the, over his chest, he's got like the blue hoodie with the cut-off sleeves and the Spider-Man logo, and he's got the hood. Like, I know that's the Ben Reilly Scarlet Spider costume, but outside of that, I don't know anything about him. Looking up on Wikipedia, Ben Reilly is a clone and ally to the original Spider-Man, Peter Parker, and is prominent in the 1994-1996 Clone Saga storyline, which led to his murder by the Green Goblin, Norman Osborn. So some people look at those logos and go, hey, one of them kind of looks like Ben Reilly's. Do they add in Ben Reilly before he gets murdered? Or do they say, you know what, we're going to look for something else?
Or because we had this hit, Miles' Peter Parker is dead. New clone Spider-Man.
Ooh, good point.
In that universe.
You're talking about the Jake Johnson universe? Or say what you said.
In Miles' universe.
Yes.
Since that Peter Parker's dead, someone cloned Peter Parker to make Ben Reilly.
I get it now. I was thinking you were talking about the Jack Johnson one, because the Jack Johnson one, we kind of saw at the end where maybe he gave up the mantle in order to be with Mary Jane.
Or maybe his one, but I was saying it'd be kind of interesting to have it in the Miles one.
I totally forgot that in Miles' one, Peter died. I just forgot and was like, oh, it's Miles' Spider-Man in that universe. The one that I think is the most interesting one to me is the negative logo.
Yes.
Because a lot of people, I'm going to ask you, well, obviously I'm going to ask Johnny. Who am I going to ask myself?
Yeah, probably.
A lot of people are thinking Mr. Negative. Oh, it's got to be Mr. Negative. He's going to be the villain of it. The other one that I am going to throw out there, and I only know about this costume through the Spider-Man PlayStation 4 game. What if it's the negative Spider-Man? The one that we saw in...
You mean just Negative Man?
So from this, His first appearance was in Spider-Man 90, which was 1998. The kind of snippet they have here for the PlayStation version is, being who he is, Spider-Man sometimes gets caught up in strange situations. Case in point, he once had to rescue a trio of Yancey Street residents from the negative zone, and of course, that required him to make a new suit for the occasion. The costume later went on to be referenced as Dusk, which Peter used to help clear his name. Do you think it's something of either one of two things? Is it just that logo means we're going to get a Dusk Spider-Man, I'll call it? Are we going to get Dusk Spider-Man? Or is it going to be, hey, Mr. Negative is probably going to be the villain, because I don't think they're going to go with their thing. Like, they're trying to build a multiverse, right? Mm-hmm. With the Spider-Verse, they're trying to build an MCU. They're not going to play their Thanos card.
Not yet.
Right away. They're not going to do it second movie. So we're going to get another Kingpin-like villain. Is this a tease to the villain of, hey, Mr. Negative is going to be the villain, and maybe Miles has to create one of these suits to go into the negative zone to defeat Mr. Negative? Or is this just something of, no, we're going to get Dusk Spider-Man, and the villain will be somebody else?
I think it might be, I'm going to lean towards Mr. Negative. Mm-hmm. Just because it's kind of a cool way to do it. I would say it's if they're going to do it, that's the right way to do it.
Because Doc Ock didn't die in the first one, right?
No, she didn't.
Okay.
But it would be a better way to do that, because it's, instead of like changing the symbol up to whatever else, it's just, hey, Spider-Man symbol, but negatives. Mm-hmm. Like in the negative spectrum of like a camera.
Yeah, I mean,
So I think that's the better way to go about it, because if they went so blatantly as to change the symbol, that's way too obvious. Mm-hmm. So I think that's a good way to hint at your villain without giving it away. I'm
usually wrong in situations, but I'm going to say this anyways. I don't think Mr. Negative is going to be the villain. I think this is, if anything, it's a tease at Negative Spider-Man being one of the other Spider-Man that we possibly see. Only because, here's my thought of it. Mm-hmm. Sony develops the video game, right? Sony sees all of Spider-Man except for what's going on in the MCU. And in the MCU, they're not going to do Mysterio, obviously, for Into the Spider-Verse. But for the PlayStation game, they did Mr. Negative. So in my mind, I would almost feel... And I would love to know if this was a conversation in the room when they're trying to decide what the story should be, is, do we do Mr. Negative, although we just did him in a PlayStation game, which I get it. Not everyone plays video games, so there's probably people out there that are going to see the movie that have never played the PS4 game. But I'm going to say there's a good amount of people who do, because we know everything that this falls under. Like, there's a good amount of people that, if you're into comic books, nerdy stuff, like gaming just is a part of that. And now the more that we've seen is that not just superhero movies, but also on the gaming side, it's becoming more of like, there's a lot more casual gamers and a lot more casual comic book fans, or superhero fans, I'll call it. Because we're obviously big fucking nerds.
Yeah.
And we dive into the nitty gritty and the storylines. Ooh, how is this going to work? And here's that. But there's other people that just go, hey, that's a great fucking movie. I love Spider-Man. There's also people that, hey, I'm going to play this video game. I'm not huge on the lore. I just want to decompress and play this game very casually, to relieve stress. That's why with me, I wouldn't be surprised if they did Mr. Negative. I just have a feeling in my heart of hearts that, hey, we just did Mr. Negative in this. Do we really want to do Mr. Negative in the movie as well and have them so much, when the thing we talk about Spider-Man is he's got such a wide rogues gallery. Mm-hmm. why handicap yourself to something you did in the PlayStation
Because you got don't forget you limit yourself when you make it a multiverse thing. Because you're really gonna use Mysterio for a multiverse. You're really gonna use Vulture for a multiverse. Are you really gonna use like Doc Ock as the big baddie in the multiverse thing? And more so, this was about Kingpin and his stuff. But yeah, the female Doc Ock was part of this one. But it's like
part of Miles's.
Yeah, exactly.
World, yeah.
But it's like I saw a lot of these Rogues Gallery villains are not going to be the ones that you can use. Well, I feel like Mr. Negative might be one you can use multiverse. Plus, because it like you kind of stated, it's video game versus movie. Yeah, we don't want to like cross movie to movie because that actually gets confusing as opposed to video game to movie because your spectrum of people is going to be lower that have done both.
I've got 2 questions for you then. One. So you don't think there's a possibility that Sony could be thinking, hey, and yet again, this is something that might take like the barrier for entry is a little bit higher because it's like, oh, I want to play the Spider-Man game. Fuck, don't have a PlayStation 4. So like or at the time this comes out, PS5 will be a thing because PS5 is going to be like they've announced it's happening. It'll probably come out next December is not this December coming up, but December 2020 is when we'll get the full like Christmas PS4 or PS5 release and next gen is here. So by the time this movie comes out 2022, we're going to be in next gen. That's something that like first off in 2 years of the console coming out, how much is that price going to drop? Because people are expecting $500 entry point for PlayStation 5 when it launches. How many people are going to do that? Like, hey, I want to play this game because I saw this movie. Oh, wait, I need a PS5. Well, I'm not spending $400 to $500 on a PlayStation. Guess I ain't playing it. Like, is it that alone that is going to keep Sony or keep the idea, just trash it totally of, hey, let's not do Mr. Negative. Because what if we want to pull the PlayStation Spider-Man into this Spider-Verse and have the Spider-Verse range from movie to TV, because they're also doing some TV Spider-Verse shows they're developing, live action movies and video games, have all of these kind of circling around to make the Spider-Verse bigger.
Why couldn't that actually pull it together then even better by having Mr. Negative?
So what I'm saying is they wouldn't do it because if you're doing a Mr. Negative in Miles's universe, how would you tie in? Because Mr. Negative in the PS4 game, I believe, I'd have to replay it, didn't die. He's still alive in the PS4 one. Does it matter that we're doing 2, 1 in each world?
Could be multiple. There's multiple Spider-Men, so there could be multiple Mr. Negatives.
Good point.
That's the thing, though. What I'm trying to say, it's that's kind of a factor that plays into it is like the amount of people are low. In all honesty, the amount of people that are playing the PlayStation and playing that game
is a smaller
pool than people that are seeing the Marvel movies or seeing the Into the Spider-Verse movies. So to cross those is a little bit more of a, hey, let's play around a little bit more with that.
Because the barrier to entry is a lot cheaper.
Exactly.
A movie ticket is a lot cheaper than a PlayStation.
Not just that, it's the amount of people, like how many casual gamers compared to gamers are there. True. How many people are like, hey, I have to play this Spider-Man game. I haven't played it.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. So I'm one of those people that hasn't played it. So it does, like the storyline, if you throw Mr. Negative into the Spider-Verse, doesn't affect me as much as it would you, for example.
Yeah, because I went through that experience.
But let's put it
now.
this way too: does that not possibly, if they say, "Hey, I want to pull this Spider-Man from the Spider-Man game into the Spider-Man, into the Spider-Verse movie," it makes it so much easier because hey, the Mr. Negatives in this, we'll have Mr. Negative in this now. Because let's put it this way: it does not have to revolve around Miles' universe still.
Good point. But do you think
right
they
now,
will?
It seems
that's
like
a side question. Do you think we'll still be in Miles' universe, or will Into the Spider-Verse
right
take
now,
Miles outside?
They're kind of talking. Talks are it's going to be more focused on Miguel since he now has the goober to jump from time to time.
Good point.
They probably will like make Miles a more focal point because he was a bigger part of it.
Is there a chance Miles isn't even in it? It's all about Miguel, and we're dealing with now. It's kind of like two stories going on at different times. Like, oh, we saw what's going on here. Now let's see what's going on in this part of the multiverse.
I feel like they're still going to pull Miles into it.
Kind of like think of Avengers when they were building up. Mm-hmm. We got to see what's going on with Iron Man. Then we got to see what's going on with Thor. Then we got to see what's going on with Iron Man. Then Hulk. Then, like, are they going to...
You have your movie switched around, sir.
Bingo. Are they going to do the same thing, though, with... What, did Hulk come before Iron Man 2?
It's Iron Man, Hulk, Iron Man, Thor, Captain America, then Avengers.
I knew Iron Man 2 was the third. I switched Thor and Hulk.
Yeah.
Because at the end of Iron Man 2 is the Sir, we found it. And it's the hammer. But could they do the same thing here then, where the next movie, like think of Into the Spider-Verse 1 as Iron Man 1.
Yeah.
Cool. We're not dealing with Tony. We're dealing with Miguel and Into the Spider-Verse 2. It's just about Miguel and his story, and he's not even going to come into contact with Miles' universe until maybe the end. So maybe that's why we could do a Mr. Negative, because we're dealing with something else in a different part of the Spider-Verse.
I feel like due to they're going to have Miles in there. They're going to have Spider-Gwen.
Everybody.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I feel like we're going to pull back Spider-Gwen. We're going to pull back Miles. Mm-hmm. You're going to have Miguel now. And then whichever ones like you feel like throwing. Like they might pull back
Noir.
They might pull back Mulaney's.
And Ham.
Yeah, and Ham. But like the ones that like hit hard, like people know the actor. People like really probably clicked with the
Mulaney character.
Like he's funny. He's the comic relief,
and people know who John Mulaney is.
Exactly. I'm just saying though, like they'll probably pull back the ones that like probably got the most like feedback with, and obviously
when you say pull back, are you saying not use or
like
you
bring
mean,
them
like,
in, bring them into it, pull them back into the movie?
Okay.
Like pull them back into the movie.
When I heard pull back, I'm thinking of it as a negative side of like, no, they're gonna pull back on.
Well,
these guys
maybe you should try the half is glass is half full side, Ricky.
Maybe I should. It's a good life lesson for all of us. But now that I know what you mean
when they pull them back, I mean pull them back into the Spider-Verse. Yeah. But yeah, I feel like they would use Spider-Gwen. They feel like they're gonna use Miles, and then like the secondaries I can see them using are Noir and Ham. Spider-Ham, just because they were both kind of comic relief.
Yeah.
Especially him and his... How
about this? And he's got a big hammer.
No, I was talking about the Noir with the... What the fuck? I can't think of it. Rubik's Cube. They're all gray.
Yeah. Here's one thing, though, that I think is on a lot of people's minds.
Yeah.
Do we get... Maybe not, like... I don't want to set the expectation for Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse with this. Maybe 3, 4, 5. How soon do we see Tom Holland, Andrew Garfield, Tobey Maguire, their Spider-Man in this movie? Because obviously they would be animated. It would be their versions of the character animated. There's already talks that they're looking into this. And that means if they bring those in, obviously if they bring those 3 in, they're going to want to bring Tom Hardy and his Venom character in to cameo.
Oh my God, could you imagine as they're like time jumping, they actually do like a 5-minute live action scene?
Basically, kind of like how Family Guy did with like, and The Simpsons did. The Simpsons did it and they're like, where behind the bookcase was that like virtual. Yeah. And like, it's like Homer in the real world and he's like, whoa, this is weird.
Yeah. No, but like they drop into like, let's just say Tom Holland's, and that's that's the one we have currently.
Which would be the MCU.
Yeah. Like they have all those characters drop in live action into his universe for like 5 minutes of the movie. Mm-hmm.
The only thing about that.
Expensive.
It's going to be more expensive because here's the thing that I'm thinking of, like, you'd have to get I'm thinking just like Haley Stein, the ones we got for the last one. Yeah. That means you'd have to pay Haley Steinfeld more because being on camera is more work than just doing voiceover stuff. So you got Haley Steinfeld, Nicolas Cage, if you're bringing back Noir, Jake Johnson, if you're bringing back that Peter Parker.
Yep.
Then if it's Tom Holland, you have Tom Holland, Andrew Garfield, Tobey Maguire.
I didn't say all three of them.
Yeah,
like,
but I'm saying like if
any of those three.
if they're there, like that's some money to where I don't know if Sony's gonna throw that out there.
I'm just
but
saying,
I would love it.
I would love it. Yeah,
because then you'd see the
only one you still
like,
wouldn't have
this
to,
is weird.
The funny part is the only one you still wouldn't have to pay more is Mulaney.
Yes,
He's still voiceover acting.
Yeah, it would just be a pig. No,
that would
a shot of a real pig and him going, I don't know, fellas, this don't look right. This don't feel right.
Shot of a real pig in a Spider-Man costume.
Yes,
guys, this feels weird.
Does anyone else feel a little sick right now? Just like something like that. But to me, with the Tom Holland stuff too, I don't know how I don't know how that's gonna mess with the MCU.
So,
or does it at all? Is it just something where, hey, we're pulling Peter Parker into this, he pulls back? Because the one thing I would think then is if you pull Tom Holland into the Spider-Verse, even if it's just whoa, why am I here? I got to get back to my universe. When he goes back to the MCU, he's just gonna forget that happened. He's just going to forget, hey, that happened. Or is he going to go, oh, hey, Mr. Fury, I got pulled into a, Spider-Verse-y thing. Like, that's the only reason where I don't think it's going to happen for number 2. The other thing, too, that I guess goes into it is 2022 is Phase 5.
Yeah.
Phase 4 is already over. So, I mean, the third Spider-Man movie's already out. We'd already get the conclusion of that. So I guess maybe Sony and Marvel might have talked about this before when they were doing the deal for Spider-Man. But that's just what I would think. It would complicate what's going on the MCU side, which Marvel doesn't want any complications. They are right now they're let Mr. Feige do his thing with his jeans and his T-shirt with his sport coat over it and his ball cap.
I feel like they know what they want to do for it.
Did you just get spooked?
I saw the timeline. What the fuck is going on?
Yeah,
I forgot my computer didn't update itself.
Oh, okay. It's because the clock in here also is not updated.
I know. That's what
I did that before.
That's
we
what
recorded.
didn't help.
I'm like, oh wow, whoa, shit. That's not right.
That's what didn't help because I'm like 12. What the fuck?
Mm-hmm. But
anyways,
to kind of wrap things up, of how how likely do you think, and do we never get it? Because is Marvel always going to be like, nah, that's going to mess with our thing, brah?
At some point, Marvel's going to have to bend a little and go, well, yeah.
Because then Sony will just say, hey, he's ours.
Yeah, Sony at some point is just going to say, you know what? I don't care how much you offer us. No, it's our character to use.
Yeah.
So at some point, it's going to be, or at some point, they're finally going to make the deal of, yeah, you know what? Let's cross over more characters back and forth. Because at this point, it's like, no, we can use Peter Parker, Tom Holland, Spider-Man.
Yeah.
In our stuff as well. Or you guys don't get any Spider-Man stuff.
Yeah.
That's what Disney's going to have to kind of bend a little bit for.
Bend, don't break, but it's got to be a little give and take.
Exactly. They're going to have to eventually have some give.
Which right now it seems... Mostly it's take on Disney's side.
On Disney's side.
I mean, from the outside
they only got,
view.
2 movies out of it, though?
What?
For this new contract?
Yes, I think
they only
so.
got, two movies with Tom Holland
so
at this point.
This Phase 4 Spider-Man and an Avengers movie.
Yeah.
Which, if you're trying to build around him for a young Avengers, which we're going to get into in a little bit, how much does that play into things? We'll go ahead and see, but this is where you guys come in. Let us know what you think down below. What are your expectations, your theories for Into the Spider-Verse 2? Not much to work on with this trailer, but Johnny and I still squeezed about 40 minutes out of this discussion. It seems like it happens like that. We just get going and we start talking. It's like, oh, this idea sparks that idea, sparks this idea. But let us know what you guys think down below. Keep this conversation going in that comment section.